Today marks 1532nd day of daily lessons, daily reflections. And today we speak about closure. Such an interesting word, closure. And I think closure is such an important topic because it's closure about your season, it's closure about your relationships, it's closure about anything in your life that doesn't work anymore. And that sometimes is quitting. Quitting, I think sometimes we do not quit because we expect there will be some kind of closure. There will be some kind of feeling or emotion or some kind of approval, validation of that closure. I think that's the true person who really cares about himself, who loves himself, is able to have a closure without needing a closure. What it means is that you quit without having that full closure. Today I'll share seven things that we're supposed to know about closure that we could allow ourselves to leave, let it go, move on without having closure. So number one is that closure doesn't require answers. Sometimes we can really start asking too many questions. We need to do that analysis paralysis, like what didn't work, what happened. We need explanations. We need to those explanations need to feel make sense, feel fair, complete. But I think that the closure is ability to really move on without knowing all the answers. Because when I think about really quitting, especially a relationship, you will never know all the answers because other person might not give you the answers. And I think that that's again we're not supposed to seek those answers when we get this will be very hard, almost impossible to get it. And some questions doesn't need to be answered to have the closure. And that's the beautiful part. Closure does not require answers. Because when you think about really acquiring those answers, that could take away the peace. That could take away energy. So why not to allocate that energy and peace to rebuilding yourself, moving towards vision, moving towards something successful, rather than trying to acquire those answers, even though that they will not bring any peace whatsoever. Number two, closure is a decision, not a feeling. And sometimes we can say, I will have a closure when it feels right. Closure rarely feels right. Closure always comes with uncomfortable feelings because it's a change at the end of the day, and change is always uncomfortable. So closure is a decision that this is it. From now on, I act differently. I am different. I'm transforming myself to something different. I'm letting go. I'm moving on, and that is a decision, not a feeling. And this is a powerful thing because sometimes we can really look for feelings, and when we look for feelings, we can stay in a position much longer than we're supposed to. And sometimes even reopen the wounds just to really feel something rather than moving out of that and to towards the peace rather than emotions that is not serving you. Number three is closure means releasing the fantasy. And that's an interesting thing because sometimes we think about goals, relationships, and thinking how that relationship supposed to end up. How this goal supposed to end up. How this endeavor supposed to end up. We had that picture, expectation, how everything's supposed to end up. And now we realize that this this fantasy that I had a ideal world, that how everything's supposed to look like, it will not gonna work. And being able to release that fantasy and accept that it will not work, and accept that you need to create a new ideal. And maybe sometimes as a that fantasy was not something that above and beyond. Sometimes that fantasy was what really is supposed to catch. Sometimes when you think about relation with the other person, something even the bare minimum is not met. And fantasy was just a bare minimum. And you realize that this is not met. And releasing the fantasy, releasing that idea, that ideal in your mind that at some point will be met. And that is could be hard releasing that version of you that maybe you wanted to have that, and sometimes you need to really change. And I think that that's when you're able to release that old vision and say, like, okay. And sometimes one thing is that rather than running away from a vision, I think it's being able to really create a new vision, a new fantasy, new idea, and moving towards that new idea. And I think it's much easier at that moment to really release the fantasy. But again, closure means releasing that fantasy. Number four, closure is reclaiming your power. I think sometimes we give away that power, and sometimes we're able to say that we are waiting for someone else validation, some acceptance, and we need to say, like, I am in full control. I am one person to blame. I take my full ownership for all the mistakes, all the decisions I made up to this point, and I'm reclaiming my power, and I am making decisions from now on. Because sometimes we allow other people to make decisions for us that doesn't lead where it's supposed to lead. And then at some point, I think that we need to really reclaim our power. So this is my life. My life is short, and I don't want to waste my time waiting for someone's validation. I think one of the biggest things that really allows me to make decisions based on my values is knowing that life is extremely short. And I think that knowing that, I even sometimes feel have a goosebumps thinking just how short it is, and how in 100 years nobody will remember you. So if nobody will remember it in 100 years, why is it supposed to matter now? And I think that's just one thought really allows to reclaim your power. Closure, that's what it is. Number five is closure allows grief without attachment. That means that closure means grief in a sense, short-term grief, because again, you potentially lose a person, you potentially lose idea, you potentially lose a fantasy expectation, you can potentially lose the version of you that you expect it to be. And that part of that giving up on that is a little bit of grief because you're losing that. But I think losing is sometimes is the best thing for you, because when you lose those things, you gain so much more because you're not able to go up without giving up. And sometimes giving up that is having a closure on the things that didn't work. And it's very powerful to be able to really have the grief without attachment to the things emotionally, because if we have attachment, that's where the luggage of the explanations that all people care luggage, emotional baggage, and that's where it is. They still have that not closed their past, not closed the relationship, not closed that any have the closure on the things that doesn't work. Number six is closure is an act of self-respect. And again, this is extremely important topic. Like we can ask yourself, how much do you love yourself? How much you respect yourself? Because if you didn't receive respect from someone else, maybe that shows that you didn't create boundaries. You tolerated that. When you build your self-respect, you do not allow other people to disrespect you because you know that what respect means. But if you do not have self-respect at that moment, it's you start to allowing other people to disrespect you because you don't know what respect means. And closure is partly of the boundary as well, because this is, I said, this is my non-negotiable. If something is in my life that doesn't serve me, I'm removing that of my life. So closure is self-respect. So if you're not able to really close something in your life and you remove us out of it, then you can look into the mirror and say, like, how much respect do I have for myself? How could I build self-respect so I could really remove all the things that doesn't serve me anymore more easily? I think that's extremely important, because one thing that I really love is that there's a beautiful saying that I don't need to keep suffering to prove that it mattered. Such an important sentence, especially in relationships. I think sometimes we need to really keep suffering to show that, oh, I really cared. I think that that's the most important part, that you know what's the truth. You don't need to prove anything to anyone else. Number seven, a last one, closure is choosing peace over clarity. Actually, I think that with age, the older I get, the more I care about peace itself. Such an amazing emotion when you have a peace, because peace could be you're going for a storm and you have peace. You can have a good day, you have peace. You have a bad day, you can have peace. I think this is a beautiful thing, and sometimes you don't have clarity, you don't have certainty, you don't have anything. The only thing that you have is peace, and that's the most beautiful thing. Because how much more powerful is seeking clarity with the peace in your mind? Because you potentially can see clarity with a storm in your mind, with the negativity, with all the negative stuff coming up, or you can have and you can have that peace and really look for clarity, because peace is much more important. It's much more easy to achieve clarity when you have peace in your mind. When you have clarity, you still have a lot of negativity, and you still could have not peace. But even with the clarity, exactly what you need to do, you still could have a lot of negative emotions. So peace is much more important. So peace comes a lot of times from letting go, not fully from understanding it. As closure requires peace, not clarity. That's what I like about closure. So I hope you to reflect as well, because I think that closure is such an important topic, because to be honest, it's quite often we need to have a closure, because we're moving from season to season, we're moving from friend to friend, we're moving from significant other to potential significant other. There's so many things that we really need to have closure. So it's not like it happens every single week, but it happens over time, over and over and over again. And being able to really close those seasons allow us to really move to new season much faster. I think sometimes we stay in a limbo for much longer rather than closing, and rather than opening, we stay in a limbo much longer than we're supposed to, because we're not able to have the proper closure. So I hope you choose to win, and see you tomorrow.